Hi, Facebook. It is Sunday, time for Say It Right Sundays with Right On Consulting Agency. And Facebook says it's building me an audience, so we're going to let it do just that. It is a little bit earlier than what I normally get on. I'm just still trying some different times just to, see what numbers and what times are working best in terms of marketing and that kind of thing. So bear with me. The 7:45 was good. And then I wanted to make sure that I have time tonight to get through with tonight's video. This series, we are starting a new series. We just wrapped up on last week, how to manage your things to do list. I absolutely enjoyed that particular series, and I know you guys did too, based off some feedback that I received. So I'm just super excited to start the next series, which is called It Is Written. I want to discuss with you on the next couple of weeks the power of writing, why writing is so important, and I probably will get into some of the mechanics of writing on tonight, like what it actually is and why our brains are able to recall the information much faster and much quicker and easier when we write the information down, and why the brain, as we discussed in the last series, is able to bring the information to the forefront of our minds when we physically write the information down. So that is what I'm going to share with you guys on tonight, what writing is in its fullness. I know we know what writing is. You take a pencil or a pen and you write. But I want to let you know exactly what's going on during the process of writing, so that you guys have an understanding as to how writing and the brain go together. And then I think once you have that understanding, I believe you'll write more. I'm looking forward to writing more. The things to do list was like the tip of the iceberg, and I am just super excited to just share this information with you guys. So we're going to go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to share with you is that writing and reading go together. And we are going to get in this particular series, the first part is just to lay a foundation on what writing is, and then we'll get into the actual brain, power behind writing, and then we'll get into what is literacy, talk about basic literacy, intermediate literacy, and then we'll talk about what you call disciplined literacy. And one thing I want you to just kind of keep in mind as we go through this series, that literacy in its fullness includes the ability to be able to read and write. So if you don't do both, then you are not considered a literate person. You have to be able to read and write in order to be able to be able to be considered someone who is literate. So you do have different ranges of literacy. You have what they call functional literacy. You have what you call illiteracy. You have what you call just literate, being basically literate. And you have illiteracy, and it goes all the way to like advanced literacy, where you begin to tap into disciplined literacy, where you focus on a particular subject. So you have computer literacy, you have mechanical literacy. Anything can be a kind of literacy, and we will get into that, I believe, once we get into our disciplined literacy part of this particular series. So what is writing? I asked the question just randomly. I was in my office in one of the computer labs at work, and I asked the question, how does a person view literacy? And then the answer was, it depends on how literate the person is. But then it was like, okay, there's a better question. How should a person view literacy? And the answer to that question in its smallest form, we have to be able to identify letters, words, sentences, paragraph, passages, and so on and so forth. But at its smallest form, literacy is the ability to be able to recognize letters and the sounds associated with those letters. Now, what do all of these things have to do with writing? These particular things, letters, writings, words, sentences, paragraph, passages, they are all written. Okay, letters are written, words are written, sentences are written, paragraphs are written, passages are written, and eventually these things are read by somebody. No one writes anything just to have it kind of floating around out there. You are expecting someone to read that information, even if that someone is you, at a later time. So all of these things have one thing in common: they are written and eventually they are read. And that's kind of how they go together. Everything that's written is eventually read. Everything that's read is eventually heard. Everything that's heard is eventually believed. If you think about something you've heard on the news, and it may not be believed for long, but you have to process that information that you hear. And once you process the information, it can either you put it in the pile and say, hey, yeah, I believe this, I'm going to take this with me. Or you put it in the pile and say, hey, that doesn't quite line up with my belief system. Let me move on to something else. So what it doesn't mean to write in its basic format, or what is the word written? What does it mean? So something that is written is to grave. It also means, especially to write, figuratively, to describe something, to write something, or something that is writing or written. This is why our brains are able to remember and recall information much faster and much easier when we actually write the information down. Based off of the definition alone, something that is written is engraved on our minds. So anytime we write the information down, it is literally being engraved into our minds, and we are able to, or your brain is able to recall that information and bring it to the forefront of your mind. And remember, from my last series, it also triggers to your brain, hey, pay attention to this information. Make sure you are paying attention to this brain, because we're going to need this information later on. So that's our first takeaway. Something that is written or writing itself engraves the information onto your mind when you actually perform the task. Now, so with this particular definition as well, when you say written, and it means a grapho, which we'll get into, and when you're talking about letters and words and sounds, the act of writing is describing to our brains what we need to know or what we need to remember. Part of the definition means to grave, especially to write, figuratively to describe. So anytime you are actually physically writing information down, you are participating in the act of describing. You are describing to your brain possibly what you need to do, what you need to pick up from the store, what you need to remember for a test, so on and so forth. So when something is written, that particular word is not in its present tense. It's actually a past participle of the word write. And anything that's a past participle, I know I'm going back to like 4th grade on you guys, but hang in there with me. It's something that's expressly or typically expressed in a completed action. So the action is already done. The book was written in 1992. That's when it was completed. That is when it was done. And so anytime we are writing or it is written, the action is already complete. So when you write information down, it is as good as done. It's good as completed. It is a completed action to your brain. I believe that's why your brain is able to recall that information, and that's why your brain is able to bring that information to the forefront of your mind, because you have technically written the information down. So technically it is as good as done. Remember, I think last week or the week before last, we discussed people are more successful when they actually write their goals down. They are 3 times more successful than the 14% of people who are 10 times more successful than the individuals who don't write information down, who don't write down their goals. So one thing you want to remember, the more you write information down, I believe the more you're going to get done, because your brain processes it as something that's already completed. This task is already as good as done to your mind when you actually write it down. It becomes one of those, it is written. And so when it is written, it is also just as good as done. So let's look at the word write. What does the actual word write mean? So to write means, because written is the past participle, the past tense, if you will, just in its simplest form of the word write. So what does it mean to write something down? So when I write, it means to grave. By implication, it also means to write. But then write has some different verbs to go with it. When you write, you are describing. When you write, you are subscribing. When you write, you are inscribing. When you write, you are subscribing. And all of this, guys, remember we talked about how powerful and connected the brain and writing are to one another. It also means to record. And so when you're writing, all of this is going on at the same time. You are describing, inscribing, prescribing, subscribing, and recording messages to your brain. How powerful is that? How powerful is the act of writing to be able to do all of those things? So what actually happens when we're writing, you're not just writing, which is takeaway number 2. When you write information down, not only are you writing information down, but again, you are describing, inscribing, prescribing, subscribing, and recording the information, almost like in a little bank. I don't even know how the brain works. It makes me want to go and study the brain, which we are going to get to in our next series. Next part, we are going to talk about the actual brain and how the brain works with our ability to write and to speak. And so we are going to get into that, but I just wish I could see how the brain works in its like purest form. I guess I need to watch some CAT scans or MRIs. I wonder if that will, I don't know. So anyway, to describe, what does it mean to describe something? So when you describe, you are presenting or representing or giving an account in words. So let's say you have a things to do list and you are describing what you need to do for your day, for your week, for your month, like we discussed about 2 weeks ago. You are describing what you need to get done. You are giving an account of the things you need to get done when you make a things to do list. You are also distributing. So we talked about some days you have goals for the day. Some things you have a things to do list that break down for a week's worth of things. Sometimes you make a things to do list and it can stretch out for a month. So you are distributing different characteristics to your day, to your month, to your weeks, to your life. Like, for example, when you make your things to do list. It also means to observe. And this is the word describe. Describe also means, and it's an archaic definition, but I like the definition because it talks about observing and perceiving. So when we write information down, we are observing and perceiving the information. That's why our brain is able to bring that information back to the forefront of our minds. That's why our brains are able to trigger to us, brain, look, you need to remember this information. Adrian is writing it down. Hillary is writing it down. Whitney is writing it down. Rose is writing it down. Herman is writing it down. It's triggering in our brain that we need to observe and perceive what is actually being written. Why? Because what is written is eventually going to be read by somebody. It may be just you, or it may be masses of people, which get us into, passages and books and those kinds of things. So just a quick question you can ask yourself: how much are we not observing? How much are we not perceiving because we don't write it down? I know we all can testify, oh my goodness, I forgot to do ABCD because we didn't write the information down. I know I have been doing a whole lot of a better job of remembering dates. They are literally, I feel like, engraved on my mind because I have written this information down. And I can see how this, just teaching these videos and having an understanding and just having the consciousness that the fact when I physically write information down, that my brain is actually working with me and to help me remember this information. It makes sense to me. The act of remembering kind of makes a little bit more sense to me. I see the dates. I see the appointments. I see the commitments that I'm making or that I have made. And I try to go out of my way to keep those things because my memory, my brain, my mind is reminding me that they exist. And again, based off of the word written, the fact that it's a past participle, it is as good as done anyway. So you might as well, if you don't write it down, if you want to forget, you might want to just not write it down because your brain is going to remember that information that you write down, of course, much quicker than the information that you don't. So that's the word describe. The definition that I like the most, again, was to observe and perceive. And the question I asked you guys that you may want to go and ask yourself at some other time: how much are you not observing? How much are you not perceiving just because you don't write the information down? So another definition of the word write is to inscribe. So when we inscribe something, not only are we writing, hi mom, thanks for listening. Not only are we writing, not only are we engraving, it also implies that you are painting as a lasting record. It also means to enter on a list or to enroll. So it's almost like you are enrolling and listing this information on your brain so that your brain and your mind can recall the information at a later time. Some synonyms for the word inscribe are to etch or to sculpt. Some related words are to chisel, to groove, to impress. So we are literally impressing upon our minds and in our minds what we need to do, or the goals that we set for ourselves, or what we want people to know about us when we actually write information down. We are making an impression, one on our minds, and then we can make an impression on the people when they actually get the information and read whatever is written. Don't forget that when something is written, it is a completed action and it is good as done. You can count on your brain doing its part to bring that information back to your mind, to bring it. Remember, we talked about the forefront of your mind. We can count on the brain to do its job. We just have to do ours and begin to write the information down. So we are literally chiseling. Here's the notes. We are literally chiseling information into our minds. We are impressing, we are affixing information into our minds when we write the information down. Who knew that was what was going on when you say, I'm going to go write this letter? Who knew? I'm going to go write my things to do list. Who knew that we were literally chiseling, we were literally sculpting, and we were literally enrolling and imprinting and painting a lasting record in our minds, the things that we actually wrote down. This is what's happening to you. This is what's happening to me. This is what's happening to us when we take the time to write information down. It's good as done is one thing. Another thing, it's good as you're giving an account of what you need to do. If, like, just for my last series, if you are creating a things to do list, it is chiseling whatever you are writing. It's chiseling it in your mind. That's powerful by itself to me. That we can chisel, we can engrave, we can impress information into our minds based off of actually just taking the time to write the information down. And we are going to get into what happens when we read. I think it's almost the same effect that it has on the brain to be able to read the information. And I don't even know if it's the same part of the brain. I want to say, and we'll get into that next week, about the writing and the reading and how your brain actually preps to read what you need to say. You write, and then your brain is prepping to speak those words. So we're going to get into that next week. I'm looking forward to that as well. So the next definition of the word to write, I'm just walking you through the different kinds of actions that are going on when you physically write information down. So the next thing your mind and you are doing when you write, you are prescribing the information to your mind. So you are laying down a rule, or you are dictating to your mind, hey brain, I need to remember this information. Hey brain, this is a guide, this is direction. This is a rule of action for me. So if you write down on your things to do list, I need to go to Walmart, it creates an action, a rule of action. It dictates, it begins to ordain or to specify with authority what you need to do. That's how come you end up at Walmart when it ends up on your things to do list. You have dictated your actions. So what happens when we write down our goals? We begin to dictate our actions of what we need to complete, of what actually needs to get done in our particular lives. How powerful is that? You stuck, you need a boost, you need some get up and go in your life, begin to write down that information. You are going to begin to dictate your own actions of getting things done. So we are able to give our lives some kind of directions when we write down our goals. Because remember, your brain is going to remind you that you need to get this information done. And if you're using the goal sheet that I shared with you, that's going to be even the more powerful, because it's going to continue to dictate to you why you want to get done. That particular goal sheet dictates to you the time frame in which you want to get done. That goal sheet dictates to you the information on where's your halfway point and getting that information done. Who can you call to help you get that particular goal done? So when you write the information down, not only are you giving an account in words, not only are you observing and perceiving, not only are you chiseling the information into your mind, you are also dictating to your brain and then to the rest of your being, if you will, what you need to do. Why? Because remember, it is written. It's as good as done when you write that information down. So this particular word, to prescribe, means to write at the beginning or to claim a title to something by right or prescription. So you are claiming the right to, hey, I'm going to Walmart today. You are claiming the right, hey, before I turn 40, I am going to do A, B, C, D. And another thing you can do, just to know, is like it is written, I am going to. And then you begin to declare these things over yourself. You begin to speak these things. I know some of y'all probably spiritual on the line, and you know we're supposed to speak these things that are not as though they were, and they begin to transform or to manifest. And so one thing you can start doing once you get your list down, hey, it is written, I am going to do A, B, C, D. By the time I turn 40, I want to have done this. By the time I turn 35, I want to have done this. And once you begin to speak these things, that's a whole nother level of dictating to your life what's going on. And so I just want to kind of throw that in to you. A related word is to tell. You begin to tell yourself just through the act of writing what you need to do, what you need to get done. You begin to govern and be led and be managed by what you write. So of course you want to be careful of what you write, just like we want to be careful what we actually speak, what we actually say. One to one another, one to yourself. We know the power of words. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's not true. People are getting bullied. People are losing their lives based off the words that are spoken. And now because of outlets like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, now people are getting hurt by the words people write. So we can't discredit the power of writing. We can't discredit the power of words. One, they kill and they build at the same time. They have the power to do both. Why? Because the actual word to write talks about dictation, governing, leading, managing. And so we want to be good dictators of our words, and we want to write positive words. We want to speak positive words. We want to speak positive words to ourselves. We want to speak positive words to other people, and that way we're not breaking anybody down. We're helping actually to build people up. So that's the word to prescribe. Don't forget that when you are writing, you are describing, inscribing, prescribing, and then the next one is to subscribe. So what does the word subscribe mean? When you subscribe something, you support it. Think about a subscription. You are supporting Sports Illustrated when you subscribe to their magazine. You are supporting Redbook when you subscribe to their industry, to their magazine. So when you subscribe through the act of writing, you are supporting that particular goal. We're just going to stick with the goals because that's the last thing we talked about. It also means to assent and assent to. It means a synonym for the word is to agree. It means to come around. It means to consent. So you are embracing is another word, a related word, or submitting to what you write down. Again, it's as good as done. You are coming into agreement with what you said you were going to do when you write the information down. How many of us don't come into agreement with the goals we have because we don't write the information down? How many of us, like when you do a contract, that contract is written, and then you sign your name on it, and you have come into agreement with the company or with the person that you've just signed a contract with, because it's a written agreement. Y'all, you can go to jail if you break a written agreement. You know, how powerful are our contracts on our job? We are committing to, we are submitting to, we are agreeing through the act of a written contract to do whatever the contract says to do. So look how powerful writing is. It's not just the A and the B and the C on the paper. It is a way of submitting yourself to information, and then it's also a way of you consenting. You come into agreement physically, y'all, scientifically, some kind of way with the information you are writing just through the simple act of writing the information down. How powerful is that if you go somewhere and write your goals down? You are agreeing to, you are committing to embracing the fact that you want to complete a goal maybe by the time you're 35. You're embracing the idea that maybe by the time of 40, you want to own this Fortune 500 company just because you write information down. So when you are embracing, my notes here say, you are embracing what you write down. It's why we can remember what we write, because we are coming into agreement with the things we write down, and writing it down becomes like a binding force. And our brains make sure we keep the agreement. Our brains make sure that we get it done. Why? Remember from the last series, your brain is going to trigger to your whole, like I think your whole body, hey, we got to remember this information, body. She's writing it down. He's writing it down. We got to remember this. And then once the act of physically writing the information is down, then your brain later is able to recall that information. And remember from the last series, we talked about it brings the information up to the forefront. It brings that information that is written up to the very forefront, the front of your mind. That's why you are able to get things like maybe off your things to do list done, because your brain is not going to let you forget once that information is written down. Remember, this series is called It Is Written. And remember, the act of something being written is a past participle, and it's basic, it's past tense, y'all. It's as good as done. You got some goals you want to complete, start writing that information down. You got some things you need to get done just today, start writing the information down. And again, I am admonishing us to be careful what we write down, and then be careful what we say. Sticks and stones may break my bones, y'all. Words do hurt, and we know that. Words have the power to destroy us. Words have the power to build us up. And we've got to become more conscious of what we are saying to others, to what we are saying to ourselves, because all of this is going on at the same time. And we are going to get into reading. Remember, this whole series is going to bring us an understanding of literacy, what it means to be literate, and then the different disciplines or the different types of literacy. In terms of basic literacy, what happens when you have a basic literate mind or basic literate understanding. And then also we're going to discuss an intermediate literacy, and then we're going to get into more of a disciplined literacy. What happens when you are a more disciplined literate person? So again, writing is not just writing. It's bigger than that. You are describing, you are prescribing, you are inscribing, and you are subscribing. You are coming into agreement with the information that you write down. Y'all, that is powerful. I don't know about y'all, but to me, just these definitions of alone just really help me get an understanding of what it means to write. You aren't just writing, or you should not just be writing for fun. You know, you are engraving information on your mind. You are saying, hey, this is going to dictate what I do, what I say. It may be dictating who you hang around just based off of what you write. You are giving an account. You are observing and perceiving information based off of the information that you write down. So you have more control over what's going on in your life than you probably think. We have a lot more control than we give ourselves credit for, and how things work out. That's why we got to be careful, one, what we write. You got to be careful what you hear. You need to be careful what, you listen to. You also probably need to be careful of what you read. And we're probably going to hit why these things, because it matters. What we read, it goes into our minds in the same process. Why? Because it is written. These words are written on the page. And because it's written, then they are those same words that we're reading. They're becoming inscribed onto our brains, prescribed and subscribed onto our brains. So we need to be careful what we read. We need to be careful, what we hear. We need to be careful what we're watching, because our brains, all of this stuff is written, and the brain is bringing to the forefront information that is written down, especially when we actually do the writing down of the information. So just be careful with what you write, and then I know we'll probably get into, the actual words that we say. I think we're going to get into it in the next particular series, because there's a part of the brain that is prepping to speak what you write. So that's powerful. It's a part of our brain that is ready to, it's like it, I think the way it described it in the research that I've done is that it is preparing a script. So our brains are preparing a script of the information that we write down. Y'all, that's awesome. Like, I'm just outdone with how this human brain works. And I know I haven't even like hit the tip of the iceberg in studying out, because I don't want to know about the whole brain, just how the brain works with writing and reading for some things I have to do. So the last definition is when you write, or a definition for the word write means to record. So what does the word record mean? So when we record information, what we're actually doing is setting it down in writing, and we are furnishing written evidence of. So if I have a things to do list, we are giving that things to do list evidence that I need to go to Walmart and pick up the items off of my grocery list. We are giving evidence that you want to complete A, B, C, D by the time you're 40 when you write down your goals, or by the time you're 35, or by the time you're 21. We are also registering permanently by mechanical means. So what is written down, y'all, is permanent. You can't erase the information that is written down. I think it's almost like, you can't erase emails. That information is typed, but it's still a kind of writing. So we can't erase what we write in emails. That's why people can remember words. That's how come they can go into our minds and be there, because it's a permanent thing. Words spoken and words written are just like permanent things that are in the earth, permanent things that go on in our minds, and we need to be mindful of that. We need to be more mindful of what we're writing and what we're reading, because they are just so powerful because of the nature of what they are. Once you get into like the mechanics of A equals R and sounds and all of this kind of stuff, which we are not going to get into here, but to register permanently, when you write the information down, you are permanently registering that information into your brain. Think about when you register a child into a school. They are permanently registered to that school to be in that building, and then they get registration papers to be in a specific class, and that stuff is permanent until what? A new plan is written. Until you withdraw your students and say, hey, this kid is going over here to this particular school, or hey, I need my kid to be in another class. It's a permanent arrangement until something else is written to override what was already laid out in place. So we can override bad words. We can override bad things that are written by us, but we've got to override them we've got to override what was already written. So we got to write something else. You have the power to write something else. If you don't like the route your life is going in, then we know we can do something else. We don't have to keep going down the same paths. We don't have to keep going down the same roads. We know that we have the power to make decisions to do other things. And the same thing goes with writing. We can write something else. Hey, the power of whiteouts and the power of the pencil are real. You get to erase. We get to erase with the pencil. We get to use whiteout and erase what was written. And you get to a chance to see. It reads different. Whatever you erased or whatever you whited out, it's like, hey, it completely alters what was there in the beginning. And it begins to, you have something else you replace. It's a replacement type deal. So we do have a chance to rewrite. We have a chance to put something else out there in our written state. So another definition for the word record means to read. So we see how when we write information that it goes with reading. A definition, guys, of something that is written is actually to indicate that you're going to read the information. Again, nobody's just writing information down, and nobody's going to read it, even if that person is just you. When you write a letter in your diary, you are the only one who's intended to read it. You don't want, if it's a private diary, the little diaries we had, we were growing up with the lock and the key on it and all that kind of stuff you hid under your bed, even though everybody knew it was there. Hopefully nobody bothered you all's private thoughts and that kind of thing. It was still, you didn't want anybody to read it. So we know the information we write down is eventually going to be read, or in that moment you are reading the information. And that's the power, again, of how writing and reading go together, and then the power of what it means, or the definition of what it means to be literate. Remember, literate or having literacy is not just being able to read. Literacy is the ability to read and write. So we have to be able to do both in order to be considered literate individuals in this particular earth that we, in this society, not the earth that we live in. In this society, you have to be able to read and write at a certain level, you know, to be able to be considered literate. All right, so I'm almost done. To record means to cause sound, visual images to be registered on something. So when we go into the studio and we record, and we are recording different sounds and different vocals and instruments on a disc. You guys, I believe when we write information down, we are recording those sounds. We are recording A equals A, B equals ba, when we are writing the information down. That's how come we're able to read once we learn how to read. Our minds are just that fast where it's able to do the function and operate at its own level without our having to stop and think about it once we learn the process. And so let's see, last thing, the origins. It literally means to recall. So the word record, and it's from the Middle English, literally means to recall the information. It also means from re plus cord, and core is our heart. So it's, you know, we can find more information about recording information at our heart. So how powerful is that when we write words down, or we record information down? This is a video recording, or we send a recording to somebody. That thing, it does, it registers in our hearts. And so that's why we need to be careful, you know, what we say to people, what we're reading, what we're writing, what we say to ourselves, you know, because it's getting recorded on our hearts. And we know what's in our hearts is eventually going to come out. We're going to eventually say what's in our hearts, you know, to somebody, to ourselves. And so we can be careful and begin to rewrite what's already there. Maybe you have low self-esteem. Start writing yourself positive notes. Maybe you are dealing with an issue that you want to overcome. Start writing it down. Start writing down the opposite of what's going on and see what you get. Because what you're going to end up doing, you're going to write that information down. Your brain is going to record that information. Your brain is describing the action. Your brain is prescribing, subscribing, inscribing, and you're going to begin to walk those things out, the different things. It also means to jot down. Record means to jot down, put down, register, report, chronicle, transcribe, to score, and to notch. So it kind of has some of the same connotation as inscribe. Yeah, I think inscribe. Yeah, to sculpt, to notch was another, to affix was a related word to the word inscribe. So record and inscribe have some similar meanings to us as writers. And you may not be a professional writer, but if you write your things to do list down, you are performing these actions. So takeaway number 2, our first takeaway was writing. And I am wrapping up, guys. Writing engraves the graphics on our minds. That's the first thing we need to know. Why writing is so important. The physical act of writing information down is engraving that information to our brains. And remember, we talked about in our last series, your brain is able to recall that information. It brings the information to the forefront of your mind. And then what your brain is able to do is trigger to your brain, to your cells, to something that you guys or we need to remember the information that is being written. It's like I think I described it as a flag on the play. You know, when you get that flag on the play, everything has to stop. And that's what our brain does when we're writing information down. It hones in. It really pays attention to the information that we write down. And then takeaway number 2, when you write, you are describing, prescribing, subscribing, inscribing, and recording information to your brain. You're not just writing in it simple. You're just writing, but all of those things are going on at the same time when you write. And then the last note that I want to leave with you guys, what is written is eventually going to be read by somebody, even if that somebody is you. So why not write down some positive thoughts? Why not write down some goals that you have? Because what you're going to start doing once you're reading it, then you're rehearsing that information. And so then once you rehearse it, it's like, you know, you begin to think on these things. You begin to meditate on them. You may even begin to speak them. Hey, I'm going to do this by the time I'm 35. you don't read it so much, it just becomes a part of who you are. You've written different things down, and it becomes a part of who you are. And it literally is, like one of the definitions said, a driving force. What is written becomes such a driving force for us, and it helps us, and it pushes us, and it propels us to get things done. So I didn't know this was all that writing entailed, guys, until I sat down and began to look the information up. Began to just, and all I did was look up the word right. Now I use my concordance, and not just, well, I use my concordance and a dictionary. Like I use the Merriam-Webster dictionary to look up the word describe, inscribe, prescribe, subscribe, and record. But when I looked up written, I got that information out of my concordance. You know, in the Bible where it says it, where Christ began to say, hey, it is written. And so now you know what he was referring to. It's already described that man cannot live by bread alone. You know, those kinds of things. He was conscious of this stuff. You know, so we can become conscious of the things we need to get done, conscious of the goals that we have to get done. We can begin to embrace and come into agreement with our goals, with some life plans that we have, with just the things we need to get done today, you know, if we begin to write the information down. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the introductory series to this particular series 3, called It's Written. It's a foundational teaching on what the word write means, or written, and then we looked up or discussed the word write, so that you know exactly what writing is. And this it helped me. It may not have helped you. It has already helped me in some lifelong things I have to get done. It just opened up my eyes and the eyes of my understanding on how to teach reading. I've taught reading for 3 years, and y'all, I honestly did not have a clue as to what I was doing in order to take a kid who did not know how to read to a place of literacy. I know how to do it now, and I'm so excited about that because of some things God has spoken to me to do. I have a deeper understanding of what literacy is, how reading goes together, how reading and writing go together, what that process looks like to us as people, and how our brain plays such a part in the writing and the reading process. And then it begins to form in what you are speaking. So if you want to do better about your speaking, start writing correctly. Start reading words that are written correctly. It's going to help your speech as well. So don't forget, the smallest part of being literate is the letters, our letters, and the sounds that they make. So maybe it's time for you to start teaching your kids, you know, how to read. We know what to do. A equals A, B equals B, C equals K. Basic. Those are sounds, and then those sounds are recorded on our minds, and then once that information is recorded on our minds, according to the definition, it's going to bring it to the forefront of your mind, and then eventually you just begin to flow in the ability to read, and then we begin to flow in our ability to write once we have that recognition down. So I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited with me. If not, that is okay. I know this was a lot of definitions, but basically our brains are doing a whole lot more than we probably thought when we start writing. Describing, inscribing, prescribing, subscribing, and recording are all taking place when we decide to write on. So I will see you guys again on Wednesday at 6:15 to do a quick recap of this particular video. Remember, all of this information from today and from Wednesday will repost on you guys' timeline on Friday, and I will begin to add the information for next week's series, which is called The Brain. Part 2 of It's Written series will begin again on next Sunday, maybe at 7:45. I may take the time back. I just didn't want to run into the 8 o'clock hour with this particular, opening. So I may be back on at 7:45 on next week, but I'll just see how the numbers do over the next couple of days, and then make a decision by Sunday as to when I will air again on Sunday. So please share the video, like the video, tell somebody about the video, tell them, maybe type in the timeline one thing you took away from the video as you have watched it, as you were listening, even if you didn't stay on long, to listen, go ahead and share. Hey, that was good, or hey, maybe you need to do this, or maybe you need to do that. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Go write your goals down for the week, for the day, for the month, however you want to do it. If you have something you want to accomplish and you don't want it to get away with you, I'm admonishing you to go write the information down. It is going to help you get it done. And that is all. That is all I have for you tonight. You guys have a wonderful week. I will see you guys again on Wednesday. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you later. Please tell somebody who will tell somebody who will tell somebody else about Right On Consulting Agency, the Agent Harris Method strategies you can use. See you on Wednesday, guys.